Okay, so imagine this. Buckingham Palace, right? All shimmering gold and ancient stone under a late September sky. But instead of tourists snapping selfies, there's this really thick, heavy atmosphere because it's the memorial for Queen Elizabeth. Everyone's there, all the royals, all the dignitaries, the whole shebang. William, Prince of Wales, walks in, and all eyes are on him. Not just because he's the heir, but because of this antique pocket watch he's wearing. This wasn't just any watch, it was a legacy, the Queen's last gift to William. An Edwardian-era piece, ivory face, blue steel hands, Tudor roses engraved on the case. Author Christopher Anderson mentioned Camilla was always a little afraid of William, and William only tolerates her. Everyone knew what it meant. The Queen had chosen him to carry the torch, no questions asked. William, you could tell, felt the weight of it, the pride, the responsibility. He only occasionally touched the watch, almost like he could still feel his grandmother's presence. Now, cut to Camilla, standing across the hall. She's got that practiced, diplomatic smile plastered on her face, but her eyes, they're like ice. She sees the watch, and something snaps. Apparently, years ago, when the Queen was still alive and kicking, Camilla had made some not-so-subtle hints about how much she admired it, probably hoping the Queen would gift it to her as a sign of approval. But the Queen just smiled faintly and said the watch held a special meaning, destined for the one who would carry the future of the realm. Ouch. Those words, they'd been simmering in Camilla's mind ever since. Years of playing the dutiful wife, fulfilling every obligation, and still the Queen's absolute trust rested solely with William. It wasn't just envy anymore. It was a full-blown inferno of resentment. It wasn't about the watch itself, not really. It was about the recognition she craved, the status she believed she deserved. It was about rewriting history, staking her claim. It was about stealing a birthright. The sun sets, the chandeliers cast these crazy shadows, and the watch on William's wrist gleams like a challenge. Camilla feels a headache coming on. She has to have it. The watch is proof of her failure, a constant reminder of the favor she never won. And that's when the idea takes root, sharp and cold. That night, after the ceremony, while everyone else is sleeping, Camilla's standing in front of her antique mirror, staring at her own reflection. Her face is tight, but a slow, almost smug smile creeps across her lips. She knows what she has to do. She opens this hidden ebony chest in her wardrobe, and there it is, a watch identical to William's. A perfect replica, crafted in secret by some fancy jeweler in Geneva. So precise, it could fool almost anyone. As she touches the cold crystal, her eyes blaze with this ruthless determination. The game has begun. Objects can be swapped, legacies can be stolen. And that's where things get really interesting, because that's when the plan starts to solidify. It's a high-stakes game she is about to play. She is about to step onto a path of no return. The crescent moon peeked through the gnarled branches of ancient oaks, dappling the palace grounds in shadow. Camila, chillingly composed, a woman practiced in masking her true feelings, began her plan. First, neutralize the electronic eyes. She wasn't acting alone. Early the next morning, a timid palace systems technician named David Finch, whose loyalty, or rather his silence, had been bought with a hefty sum and promises of a better life, received a secret order. His pale face showed his fear, but the lure of wealth was too strong. Under the cover of routine maintenance, he carefully uploaded a complex code, creating a temporary blind spot in the internal security system. The goal wasn't to disable the entire network, that would set off alarms. Instead, it was to craft a perfect blind spot, a brief window where the cameras monitoring the corridor to William's private quarters would glitch, looping old footage for just a few minutes. Enough time for the swap, but too short to raise suspicion. Trembling, he finished the task, erased his tracks, and slipped away, his hands clammy despite the sweltering server room. The opportunity came that evening, a grand charity gala in the palace's west wing. William, bound by duty, would be occupied for hours. Camila knew he always stored the precious watch in a small safe hidden behind a painting in his master bedroom before public events. The moment came at 10:00 p.m. Music and laughter echoed from afar, a perfect cover for the deadly silence in the private quarters. Camilla, faking a sudden illness, excused herself from the gala with graceful ease, making sure any concerned glances saw only the weariness of a queen, not the urgency beneath. She moved through the side corridors with practiced ease, her silhouette flickering against the marble walls like a ghost. Dressed in a deep navy gown that blended into the shadows, she melted into the night. As she neared William's chambers, her pulse quickened, not from fear, but from a savage thrill, a heady sense of absolute power as she placed herself above all rules. The area was dimly lit, only faint wall sconces. She carefully opened the heavy door using a key she'd cleverly acquired from an aging, inattentive housekeeper. Inside, she went straight to the painting hiding the safe. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked it. There it was, the real watch, glowing softly under the dim light, its classic beauty undeniable. Camila lifted it, feeling the weight of its history, its emotion. This was the triumph she'd been denied, and now she was seizing it. She replaced it with the flawless replica. The counterfeit watch, though exquisitely crafted, lacked the aged aristocratic soul of the original, but in the darkness and haste, the difference was imperceptible. Camila secured the safe, adjusted the painting, and slipped away. She rejoined the gala with a composure so uncanny it bordered on unsettling, as if she'd merely taken a stroll through the gardens. But fate, it seems, had other plans. On her way back, at a shadowed bend leading to the main hall, a young chambermaid named Sarah caught sight of her. Sarah was carrying a tray of empty glasses back to the kitchen. She glimpsed Camilla, or rather her silhouette, gliding from the direction of William's quarters. It wasn't a path the queen consort usually took. In the dim light, Sarah saw Camilla's face, no longer calm but tight with a strange, almost sinister satisfaction. Though she didn't understand what she'd witnessed, a cold unease crept into Sarah's mind. She lowered her gaze, pretending not to notice, but the image seared itself into her young memory. Back in her private chambers, Camilla sat, her hand tightly clutching the real watch. She held it up, letting the lamplight dance across its crystal face. She smiled, a smile of satisfaction, of triumph. It was hers now. The watch was proof that she had won a decades-long silent war against the queen's shadow. All night, she didn't set it down, holding it as if afraid it might vanish if she let go. But even as she celebrated her victory, seeds of doubt had been sown, unseen, unheard, waiting to sprout. The morning after the gala, Buckingham Palace awoke bathed in soft golden sunlight, a deceptive veneer of tranquility. William, ever meticulous, prepared for a confidential meeting regarding the Queen's legacy. He approached the safe to retrieve the watch, a daily ritual that served as a reminder of his duty and trust. As he held the watch, something fell off. It was a subtle sensation, but for someone intimately familiar with every contour of the artifact, the discrepancy was jarringly clear. First, the weight. The true watch had a distinctive aristocratic heft, a density that spoke of its craftsmanship. This one felt lighter, lacking the familiar solidity. William frowned, bringing it closer to the window to inspect under daylight. The ivory porcelain face was flawless, but when he turned it over to the back, where a nearly invisible scratch made years ago during a careless moment while training in a fighter jet should have been, it was gone. In its place was a different mark, shallower, angled slightly, askew. More telling, when he gently shook his wrist, the real watch emitted a steady, robust tick-tock, the sound of a meticulously maintained mechanical heart. This one produced a faintly hollow sound, and the second hand, though moving, seemed to lag by a fraction of a second. It was off. This was not the Queen's watch. Anger didn't erupt immediately. Instead, a cold, absolute clarity settled over him. William felt as if an invisible fist had struck at the core of his trust. He called the head of palace security, ordering a discreet internal investigation, focused on any camera malfunctions or unusual activity in his private quarters the previous night. He stressed absolute secrecy, forbidding any leaks to the outside world. Meanwhile, Sarah, the young chambermaid, spent the morning tormented by indecision. The image of Camilla's silhouette from the night before haunted her. She knew that in the palace, suspecting a senior royal was a dangerous act, one that could cost her job or worse, but her innate sense of integrity wouldn't let her stay silent. The watch was the Queen's gift. She understood its significance. After hours of inner struggle, her loyalty to the Queen and William triumphed over fear. She sought out Arthur, William's trusted aide, and requested a private meeting. In a small laundry room, Sarah, trembling, recounted what she had seen. Camilla's figure gliding through the forbidden corridor while William was at the gala. She didn't accuse, only relayed the truth. The revelation hit William like an electric shock. He immediately requested a private confrontation. The meeting took place in his study. No cameras, no third parties. Camila entered with a serene, regal air, the picture of a queen. William, dressed casually, leaned against his desk. He didn't accuse outright, only ask. He described the watch, the subtle differences he'd noticed, and inquired whether she knew of anything unusual in his quarters the previous night. Camila didn't flinch. She listened patiently, even expressing deep concern over the loss. When William mentioned a staff member's vague report of a figure near his rooms, she met his gaze unflinchingly. "Are you suspecting your own family, William?" Her voice was soft, but carried the weight of moral reproach. "If you doubt me, you're doubting the loyalty of this entire family. I've served the queen and the crown my entire life. This loss is heartbreaking, but to suspect your own kin, is that the act of a future king?" Camila's retort was razor sharp, expertly piercing William's vulnerabilities, family ties, and public image. He fell silent. He saw the absolute confidence in her eyes, but no trace of sincerity. Camila had succeeded in planting seeds of self-doubt. As the confrontation ended, Camila left with a temporary victory. She knew she'd sown enough uncertainty to delay the investigation. William stood alone, isolated. He knew the essence of this crime was betrayal. He could no longer trust the palace's internal security, nor could he risk the scandal being reported in the press. He ordered Arthur to redirect the investigation through covert external channels unconnected to the palace. Justice could not be compromised. He would cast the net himself. Secrecy became William's new weapon. He and Arthur, his loyal aide with a storied background in military intelligence, established an unofficial command center outside the palace grounds, in a modest safe house tucked away in a quiet corner of London. William's suspicions, sharpened by his confrontation with Camila, had hardened into cold certainty. Now he needed irrefutable proof. Arthur started where William directed, the camera system. A deeper analysis revealed a faint trace. A high-level user had logged in remotely to the palace's internal network at the exact window of the swap, followed immediately by a fabricated error log citing signal interference. That username directly traced to David Finch, the technician Camila had bribed. William knew an interrogation inside the palace was impossible. He arranged a clandestine meeting with David Finch at a nondescript working-class cafe hidden in a back alley on the outskirts of London. When Finch arrived, his face was ashen, his fearful eyes darting to every shadow in the room. His tension was a confession in itself, even before William spoke. Cutting through all pretense, William leaned in with a low, steely voice. "I know what you did that night, David. You tampered with the footage to betray the crown. Be honest, and you'll have protection. Stay silent, and you'll face the consequences alone." The threat wasn't merely legal. It was a moral reckoning. William invoked the Queen's legacy, the dignity of the royal family. Under the crushing psychological weight, and realizing Camilla's money couldn't shield him from the prince's quiet fury, David Finch crumbled completely. Trembling, he confessed everything. The payment received, Camilla's explicit instructions, the perfect blind spot he'd engineered. The admission erased William's last lingering doubts, but he needed physical evidence, something that could withstand Camilla's denials before the Privy Council. While William processed the interrogation, Arthur, following leads from Finch's confession, traced the funds Camila had used to commission the replica watch. It was a labyrinthine investigation. With the money laundered through layers of shell companies, Arthur uncovered the invoice for the counterfeit watch. It wasn't in Camila's name, but under an obscure financial consultancy in Ness Capital. With help from an old associate, he hacked into public business databases. The shareholder and board lists revealed no direct link to Camila, but her cousin, a trusted confidant she'd entrusted with personal matters for years, was listed as chief financial officer. This evidence. The invoice for a forged antique watch transacted with funds tied to Camila's closest kin just before the anniversary was ironclad. It was the noose tightening around her plot. When Arthur returned, handing William the dossier of documents, the prince flipped through the pages, his eyes no longer clouded by doubt, but shadowed by profound disappointment. He understood now. Camila hadn't merely stolen a piece of jewelry, she had challenged the throne's integrity, trampled the queen's spiritual legacy, and above all, betrayed the family's trust. William leaned back in his chair, the small room suddenly stifling. He closed his eyes, replaying Camilla's serene, confident face from their confrontation. She hadn't just taken a material object, she was contesting his authority. This was no longer a theft, it was a war over legacy and the legitimacy of the realm's future.